The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything built on Earth. It floated above the clouds of the shining planet Vera, a structure of glass, crystal, and energy light. Thousands of alien species had gathered there, creatures of every shape, color, and sound. Some had wings, some glowed, some looked like walking shadows. Every race in the galaxy came together under one rule: peace above all. And in the center of it all stood Ambassador Nathan Cole, Earth's representative. A human. He stood tall in his gray uniform, hands folded behind his back, eyes calm but sharp. The light from the chamber's ceiling glowed across his features, tired eyes, a steady jaw, and that strange mix of warmth and control that humans seemed to carry so naturally. He was used to the stares. Even after 20 years in the Galactic Council, humans still made many species uneasy. The Council didn't understand them. Humans looked soft. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Yet behind that calm face, every alien who had studied history knew that these fragile creatures had survived endless wars, plagues, and disasters on their dangerous blue world. They were survivors in a universe that had long forgotten what real struggle meant. Today's meeting was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be about rebuilding. But as Nathan looked around the glowing chamber, he could already sense the tension in the air. The Dralcath incident was the reason everyone was there. Just a week ago, a Terran relief ship carrying food and medicine for the frontier colonies had been attacked by Dralcath pirates. The ship's distress call had reached Earth too late. 50 humans, engineers, medics, children had been captured. The pirates were now demanding weapons and fuel in exchange for their lives. The Council wanted to discuss it. The humans wanted to act. A tall, green-scaled being with golden eyes leaned forward. He was the Zethran delegate known for his cold logic. His voice hissed through the chamber. "We must not allow the humans to act rashly. Any retaliation will only invite more bloodshed." Across the table, a feathery avian representative nodded. "Agreed. Violence is primitive. Negotiation must come first." Another voice joined in, deeper and harsher. "Humans must learn patience," said the Torcan elder, his shell-like body gleaming under the chamber lights. "Their emotional instincts make them unstable. We cannot allow them to handle this alone." Nathan listened quietly. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered. He had heard this tone before, the tone of people who believed they understood humanity, when in truth they didn't even come close. Finally, he spoke. His voice was calm but heavy. "Counselors, those hostages are not soldiers. They're families, engineers, children, and medical workers. They were helping rebuild a colony your fleets abandoned after the last war." The Zethran's tail flicked irritably. "And they were warned about pirate space, Ambassador Cole. Your people took that risk willingly." Nathan's jaw tightened. "So that makes them fair game?" The avian delegate raised a wing, trying to calm the rising tension. "Please, Ambassador, we all understand your attachment, but you must remember the Council exists to preserve peace, not revenge." Nathan's fists clenched behind his back, hidden from view. The word attachment hit him hard. Those people weren't just names on a report. They were his people. Humans didn't separate emotion from duty so easily. Every lost life mattered. Still, he took a slow breath and nodded. "Peace is important," he said softly. "But peace without protection is just silence before tragedy." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Some delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Others whispered in their languages, their translators buzzing quietly. Then the Council's main speaker, a tall being of pure light known as the Arbiter, floated forward. Its voice echoed from every direction. "Ambassador Cole," it said, "you and your species are new to this Council. We understand your pain, but the Dralcath are unpredictable. We must discuss the diplomatic route first. Violence will not be tolerated." Nathan stared at the glowing figure. He wanted to argue, to shout that his people were suffering while the Council hid behind words. But diplomacy was part of his duty, and humans had learned long ago when to hold their anger until the right moment. He gave a short nod. "Very well. Let's discuss it." But deep down, in the quiet corner of his mind, something old stirred, a memory of survival, of fighting back when no help came. It was a feeling all humans carried, buried under layers of civility. The Council continued their debate for hours. Alien voices filled the hall. arguing over protocols, peace treaties, and negotiation terms. Nathan barely heard them anymore. His thoughts were far away, back on the relief ship, with the terrified faces of the hostages. And then, just as the arbiter began to summarize the session, the chamber doors burst open. A trembling council aide rushed in, her tendrils flicking with panic. "Counselors!" Urgent transmission from Sector 9. "The pirates. They're broadcasting a live feed." Gasps rippled through the room. The holographic screens above flickered, then came to life. The image hit everyone like a blade. There they were, the Dralcath pirates, tall insectoid creatures with sharp limbs and armor made from scavenged ship metal. Behind them, dozens of humans sat on the floor of a cargo bay, bound and frightened. A small girl cried softly. A woman wrapped her arms around her, whispering comfort through tears. The pirate leader stepped forward. His mandibles clicked as he spoke. "Council of Worlds, you will meet our demands within one cycle, or we start killing your precious humans. You have seen what happens when we are ignored." The room fell into silence. Every delegate sat frozen, their colors dimming, their forms still. The sight of innocent captives, especially children, was something that touched even the coldest species. Nathan stared at the screen. His face didn't move, but the calm in his eyes was gone. It was replaced by something else, something colder, sharper. He saw everything. The positions of the pirates, the layout of the cargo bay, the faint flicker of emergency lights, and in the far corner, a shadow that didn't move like the others. A small blur of motion. Silent. Purposeful. The other aliens didn't notice. They only saw fear, but Nathan saw something else. He leaned slightly forward, voice barely above a whisper. "Wait!" His heart began to pound. He knew that kind of movement. He knew that kind of stillness. The pirates didn't realize it yet. But there was another human in that room. Someone who hadn't been captured, someone waiting, watching. And Nathan Cole, standing before the stunned council, understood what was about to happen. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never truly seen before. Humanity's predator mode. For a few long seconds, no one in the council chamber breathed. All eyes were locked on the large holographic screen hanging over the glowing floor. The pirate leader continued to shout demands. His mandibles clattered as he slammed his weapon against the metal floor. Behind him, the terrified humans flinched and a small girl buried her face in her mother's chest. The room filled with alien voices. Shock, confusion, fear. "Can't we shut it down?" one delegate shouted. "We must negotiate immediately," another cried. But Nathan Cole didn't move. He just stared at the screen, eyes sharp as glass. He saw something no one else did. In the far corner of the pirate ship's cargo bay, behind stacked metal crates, a small movement flickered. It wasn't much, just the faint reflection of a visor, the shadow of a crouched figure. Nathan leaned forward slowly. "There's someone else in there," he whispered. The council aides looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. His heart was already racing, his pulse loud in his ears. Humans had a saying, "Predators don't roar before they strike." The hologram trembled slightly, static flickering across the screen. The pirates were shouting, unaware of what was about to happen. One of them dragged a hostage to the front, pressing a weapon to his head. The human man shook, eyes wide with terror. The Dralcath leader hissed into the camera, "1 hour, or we begin executions." Nathan felt something inside him harden. He whispered under his breath, "Don't do it." The council chamber was completely silent now. Hundreds of species sat frozen, their glowing eyes reflecting the horror on the screen. And then it happened, a blur of motion behind the pirates, silent, fast. The first pirate didn't even scream. His throat opened in a clean red line. The second turned, raising his weapon, but a dark figure was already behind him. A flash of steel, a dull thud. Panic exploded in the cargo bay. Pirates screamed, firing their plasma rifles blindly into the shadows. The feed shook as smoke filled the air. "What's happening?" cried one delegate. "The transmission is breaking." "No," Nathan murmured, eyes locked on the screen. "It's not breaking." His voice was steady, almost cold. "It's beginning." The image flickered, then focused again. Through the haze, they saw him, a human soldier in black armor. His helmet visor glowed faintly blue, reflecting the emergency lights. He moved low, fast, every motion smooth and exact. One pirate tried to rush him. The soldier didn't fire his rifle. He sidestepped, caught the alien's arm, twisted, and drove his blade between the armor plates. The pirate fell soundlessly. Another raised a gun, but the soldier's shot was faster. One precise burst to the head, then another, then silence. Within seconds, the chaos was over. The soldier stepped forward into the camera's view, weapon held steady. Smoke swirled around him, bodies of pirates scattered on the deck. His breathing was calm, controlled. For a long moment he didn't move. The only sound was the soft cry of a rescued child. Then the soldier's helmet turned toward the hostages. His voice came through the speakers, low, quiet, and gentle. "It's okay now. You're safe." The translator failed to keep up, but every being in the council understood that tone. It was the sound of protection. One of the humans, a woman with blood on her face, reached up and grabbed his hand. She whispered something, tears in her eyes. The soldier knelt down, checking her wounds, moving like he'd done this 100 times. Then, without warning, his helmet camera tilted upward, directly at the broadcasting drone the pirates had set up. And now the council could see his face clearly. When the visor retracted, he wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. His expression was calm, almost emotionless, but his eyes, those cold, focused eyes, burned with something primal. The kind of look that only predators gave before a final strike. "Who is that?" a trembling delegate asked. Nathan exhaled slowly. "That's Sergeant Alex Ward," he said. He was assigned as ship security on the relief vessel. The crystalline ambassador blinked in disbelief. "One human took down an entire pirate crew?" Nathan's lips curved slightly, not into a smile, but something close. "You hurt humans' children," he said quietly. "You wake something ancient in us." The chamber fell silent again. Every delegate looked at the human ambassador with a new kind of fear. On the screen, Sergeant Ward was guiding the hostages out. He moved with care, covering every angle, scanning the corridors, his instincts sharp. There was no hesitation, no panic, only precision. As he passed by a fallen pirate, he didn't even look down. He had already assessed, acted, and moved on. The perfect mixture of emotion and control. The council had seen wars before. They had seen brutality. But this was different. This was personal. This was instinct. Why didn't he call for backup? One alien asked softly. Nathan's answer was simple. Because he didn't have time. The feed suddenly changed again. Outside the pirate ship, a formation of Terran Navy vessels dropped out of hyperspace. Their hulls were painted in dark gray, with the insignia of Earth Command glowing on their sides. The UTS Resolute, the nearest human frigate, hailed the pirates' mothership. The communication came through the council chamber's speakers. The voice of the Terran commander, crisp and calm. "This is Captain Irene Vega of the United Terran Navy. You have attacked a humanitarian vessel and taken civilians hostage. You are now considered a hostile entity. Stand down immediately or we will use force." The Dralcath fleet tried to flee. The humans didn't even give them a chance. The council watched as sleek Terran ships moved like hunting wolves, flanking the pirate vessels with silent precision. Railgun fire flared for only a moment, quick, clean, surgical. Every pirate weapon was destroyed before it could even lock on. The battle lasted exactly 6 minutes. When the dust cleared, the pirate ships drifted powerless in space, engines disabled, weapons melted from pinpoint strikes. The Terran fleet didn't celebrate. They didn't roar in victory. They simply began rescue operations. Medical pods launched. Drones carried survivors. Every move was efficient, disciplined, and quiet. The silence in the council chamber was heavy. The alien delegates sat frozen, their glowing eyes reflecting the images of human ships moving through wreckage like hunters returning from a successful kill. The arbiter's light flickered uncertainly. "Ambassador Cole," it said slowly, what did we just witness?" Nathan's voice was low, steady, filled with something between sorrow and pride. "You witnessed what happens when you corner humanity," he said, "when you hurt our families. We don't start wars. We end threats." He turned his gaze back to the screen where Sergeant Ward was lifting a crying child into his arms. "You saw what we become when we protect our own." The Zethran delegate swallowed, his scaled hands trembling slightly. "Predators," he whispered. Nathan looked at him, his tone calm but firm. "No," he said softly. "Guardians. We only become predators when you force us to remember what survival costs. And as the screen faded to black, the Galactic Council realized the truth. They had not just witnessed violence. They had witnessed the awakening of something they could never fully understand. Humanity's predator mode had activated, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The Grand Council chamber was silent. No translator drones buzzed. No delegates spoke. Even the ever-moving light that floated around the ceiling seemed dimmer, as if afraid to break the heavy stillness that filled the air. On the main screen, the last moments of the rescue replayed, humans moving swiftly through smoke, guiding children and wounded through the corridors of the ruined pirate ship. The camera caught one last image of Sergeant Alex Ward turning toward the screen, his eyes calm, steady, and unblinking. Before the feed faded to black, the silence stretched on. Aliens who had lived through centuries of peace, who had seen wars only through history recordings, sat frozen with something they could not name: fear. Not because of what they saw, but because of how they saw it. The humans hadn't raged. They hadn't shouted. They hadn't destroyed out of hate. They had simply acted, cold, efficient, absolute. Finally, the Arbiter spoke, its glowing form flickering with unease. "Ambassador Cole, what exactly was that?" Nathan Cole stood at the center of the chamber, hands clasped behind his back. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with a quiet fire. "That," he said softly, "was humanity doing what it has always done: survive." The crystalline delegate leaned forward, its voice trembling like wind through glass. "You call this survival? You wiped out an entire pirate fleet in minutes. It looked like a hunt." Nathan didn't flinch. "It was," he said. "A hunt for the ones who took our people." Gasps and whispers rippled through the room. The Zethran delegate slammed his scaled hand against the table. "Unacceptable. This council does not approve vigilante acts of destruction. You violated the Galactic Peace Accords." Nathan's gaze shifted to him, calm and steady. "The pirates violated something far older than your accords. They harmed innocents. They made children cry. You call that justification?" The Zethran hissed. "I call it instinct," Nathan replied quietly. The council erupted into noise, voices overlapping, translators struggling to keep up. Some shouted for sanctions against Earth, others called for investigation. But amid the chaos, several delegates stayed silent, their eyes wide with something other than fear. They saw something they recognized, something buried deep within their own species, forgotten after millennia of peace, the raw primal instinct to protect one's own. Finally, the Arbiter raised its glowing hand and silence returned. "Ambassador Cole," it said, "explain this behavior. What drives your people to act with such savagery and such compassion at the same time? It seems unnatural." Nathan took a deep breath and looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien faces stared back, curious, confused, afraid. "When humans left Earth," he began, "we didn't come here to conquer or to prove we were powerful. We came because we believed in unity. We thought maybe, just maybe, we could finally rest. But rest doesn't come easily to us. For millions of years our world tried to kill us. The storms, the predators, the hunger. We learned to fight because it was the only way to stay alive." He paused. His voice softened, filled with emotion that echoed across the hall. "We built families because alone we died. We built cities because together we lived. And every time something tried to destroy us, disease, war, fire, we came back stronger. Not because we wanted to fight, but because we had to." The crystalline delegate whispered, "But you are no longer fighting to survive. The galaxy is peaceful now." Nathan looked up, and the expression in his eyes made even the Arbiter's light dim. "No," he said. "The galaxy is peaceful because others fight to keep it that way. Peace exists only when someone is willing to stand between danger and the innocent." The council chamber grew still again. Even the Zethran delegate lowered his gaze. Nathan's words hung in the air, soft but unyielding. "That soldier you saw, Sergeant Ward, he didn't attack because he wanted revenge. He acted because there were children crying for help, because he saw people suffering and couldn't wait for permission to save them." He took a slow breath. His voice trembled slightly now, the emotion breaking through his calm. "That's what humans are. We can be gentle. We can be kind. But when someone hurts what we love, that kindness turns into something else, something ancient, something unstoppable." The Arbiter floated closer, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. "And this Transformation. You call it your predator mode? Nathan nodded slowly. You call it that? We call it focus. The word echoed like thunder in the still air. Focus? The crystalline delegate repeated softly. Yes, Nathan said. When fear disappears. When doubt fades. When every heartbeat, every thought, every action becomes one single purpose, protect. That's when the human mind becomes something else. You think we're predators because we're fast, precise, efficient. But we're not hunting for pleasure. We're fighting for survival, ours and others. He looked around the chamber again, his voice steady now. You saw it as a hunt. We saw it as rescue. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Many delegates lowered their gaze, uncertain what to feel. On one side, the avian representative whispered to her aide, they frighten me, but somehow I envy them. The aide tilted her feathered head. Envy them, why? Because they still feel something powerful enough to fight for, she whispered. Nathan stood tall at the center of the glowing floor. His heart was heavy, but deep inside he knew something had changed. The galaxy had seen humanity's strength, but also its heart. The Zethran delegate finally broke the silence again, voice softer this time. Ambassador Cole, you said your kind evolved under danger. Tell us, young, are you proud of that legacy? Nathan's eyes softened. He thought for a moment before answering. Proud? No, but I'm grateful for it. Because it taught us what matters. We learned that love without courage is weakness, and courage without compassion is cruelty. You must have both to protect what you cherish. He turned toward the fading screen, where the last image of Sergeant Ward and the rescued child shimmered faintly before disappearing. That's what humanity is, Nathan said quietly. A balance between the protector and the predator. The heart and the instinct. Both born from the same place, our will to keep each other alive. The arbiter bowed its glowing head. Then perhaps, it said softly, the Council has much to learn from humanity. For the first time in the chamber's long history, the light above dimmed respectfully. The other delegates followed, their bodies lowering slightly in a silent gesture of acknowledgement. Nathan didn't speak. He only looked up at the stars shining beyond the glass walls of the chamber, tiny sparks in the endless dark. He thought of the ones who had been saved, and of the ones who hadn't. He thought of Earth, small but unbroken, and of the long road humanity had taken to stand here. Among the stars and deep inside he felt something shift. The galaxy had just witnessed the side of humanity no one could explain. The part that fought with precision, killed without hate, and protected without hesitation. They called it predator mode. But Nathan knew what it really was. It was love in its fiercest form. The next morning, the Galactic Council chamber was filled again. But this time the air was not calm. It was heavy, dense with unease, whispers, and something deeper than fear. The recording of the Dralcath attack had spread across the entire galaxy overnight. Every world, every outpost, every trading hub had seen the same thing. A single human soldier cutting through a group of armed pirates to save innocent lives. And the message that followed, you hurt humans' children. You wake something ancient in us. That sentence echoed across every broadcast. It became the sound of both warning and wonder. The council chamber glowed with shifting colors as ambassadors took their seats. The room that once felt bright now seemed dim, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Nathan Cole sat quietly at his place. He looked calm, but inside he could feel the storm building again. He knew what this meeting would be about. The whispers, the questions, the accusations. Humans had done the unthinkable, acted without permission, destroyed a fleet, and rescued their own. And the galaxy was terrified of what that meant. The arbiter's voice echoed through the chamber. We are gathered to address the incident involving the Terran military and the Dralcath fleet. Many worlds are alarmed by the human response. Some call it justice, others call it savagery. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward Nathan. The Zethran delegate was the first to speak. His golden scales gleamed under the light. Ambassador Cole, your people acted outside of council law. You attacked without warning and destroyed ships that had surrendered. This cannot go unpunished. Nathan met his eyes calmly. Those ships had taken civilians hostage. They murdered doctors and children. They didn't surrender, they ran. The Zethran slammed his clawed hand down. Still, it was not your right to act. You should have waited for our decision. Nathan's voice grew colder. Waited for what? For another message of condolences? For another list of the dead? We waited too long already. The chamber fell silent for a moment. The tension between them was like ice cracking underfoot. Then the avian representative, feathers trembling, spoke softly. Ambassador Cole, what we saw was not ordinary. That soldier, he fought like something from another age. He didn't hesitate, didn't fear, didn't stop. Even his face, it was empty, yet full of purpose. How do humans do that? Nathan didn't answer right away. He looked down at the glowing table in front of him, his reflection faint in the glass. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. When a human faces death, he said, something changes. It's not just training or strength. It's something older. We stop thinking about ourselves. We think about the people behind us, the ones we need to protect. That focus takes over. Everything else disappears. The crystalline delegate leaned forward, light flickering through its transparent form. And that focus, does it not frighten you? Nathan looked up slowly. It does. Every time. The room grew quiet again. His honesty seemed to catch everyone off guard. He continued, his tone softer now. You think we enjoy it, our wars, our violence. But we don't, we hate it. Every human soldier, every rescuer, every parent who fights for their child, they all feel the fear, the pain, but they fight anyway, because someone has to. He paused and looked around the room. You call it predator mode, we call it courage. Whispers rippled across the chamber again. Some nodded in understanding. Others still looked afraid. Then a small holographic screen appeared at the center of the hall. It showed new footage. Human ships escorting the rescued civilians back to a Terran base. Children waving through the glass. Medics working. Soldiers standing guard, silent and alert. The Arbiter's voice was softer now. It seems your people not only rescued the hostages, but delivered aid to the Dralcath colonies afterward. Nathan nodded. We did, we're not monsters. We protected our own. But we also gave food and medicine to their wounded. They made a choice to harm us. We made a choice not to become them. That line hit the chamber like a spark. Even the Zethran delegate stayed silent for a moment. His eyes flickered with something that might have been respect or confusion. The avian representative whispered, You destroy with precision, and then heal with the same hands. How can one species hold both? Nathan gave a faint smile. Because we learned that mercy without strength is fragile, and strength without mercy is meaningless. There was a long silence. For the first time, the council wasn't sure if it should fear humanity or admire it. But then the crystalline delegate broke the silence again. Ambassador Cole, it said carefully, if what we saw yesterday happens again, if another species threatens your people, will humanity always respond like this? Nathan looked up at the stars visible through the chamber's open dome. His answer came slow but certain. If you come for us with open hands, he said, we'll share water, food, and peace. But if you come for our children, he looked around the room, eyes steady, voice turning cold. Then we will show you what a cornered human truly is. The Arbiter's light pulsed brighter, as if sensing the power behind his words. The council chamber fell into silence again. No arguments, no debates, just quiet understanding. They had seen what that meant. They had seen the calm, calculated precision of humanity's wrath. And for the first time, the galaxy realized that humans did not fight for conquest. They fought for survival and love. Nathan turned his gaze back to the delegates. His tone softened again. You see us as dangerous because we can be both kind and deadly. But that's the truth of who we are. Everything on Earth tried to kill us once. The storms, the beasts, even our own mistakes. We learned that to love deeply, you must be willing to fight for what you love. That's what you saw yesterday. The avian delegate's feathers shivered. And that's what frightens us. Nathan gave a small, sad smile. Then maybe fear is good. It means you understand. The Arbiter finally spoke again. Perhaps this council has been too quick to judge. Humanity's response was extreme, but so was the crime committed against them. I see now that peace and strength do not need to be enemies. The glowing chamber lights began to rise again, signaling the end of the session. But no one moved. They just sat in silence watching Nathan, the lone human who stood taller than fear itself. Outside, through the transparent walls, the distant light of human ships shimmered near the planet's orbit. They moved in perfect formation, silent, vigilant, ready. Nathan looked at them, and a quiet pride filled his chest. Humanity had shown its true face, and though the galaxy trembled, It would remember. For in that moment, every being in that chamber knew. The calm, peaceful humans who shared laughter and kindness carried something wild beneath their skin. A heart that beat for love, but when needed, could roar like thunder. And that day, the galaxy didn't just witness humanity's power. It understood it, because what everyone had seen was not anger. It was protection. It was survival. It was humanity's predator mode, not born of hate, but born of love. The message spread faster than light itself. Every planet, every space station, every port where trade ships docked, all spoke of the same event. The words predator mode were repeated in countless tongues, whispered in fear and awe. The recording of the human soldier fighting, his calm brutality, his steady eyes had been replayed millions of times. Even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, beings who had never met a human were watching in silence. Some called it horrifying. Some called it heroic, but none could forget it. For centuries, humans had been seen as the fragile species, small, emotional, too attached to their families, too eager to trust. Other races thought of them as the soft ones, always talking about peace, always smiling, always reaching out first. Now the galaxy saw something new, a truth hidden behind those smiles. The same hands that built, healed, and comforted could also strike with terrifying precision when pushed too far. In the Terran system, on Earth itself, the response was different. When the news broke, people didn't cheer for victory. They didn't sing songs of war. They mourned. The footage of the rescue played on every screen, showing the faces of those who had been taken, the medics, the engineers, the children. There were tears, embraces, moments of silence. In the middle of a crowded square, a young mother held her rescued son close, whispering to him as cameras watched. "They won't take you again," she said softly. "Not while we're here." The crowd around her began to chant, not in anger, but in unity. "Never again." From orbit, the Terran fleet observed in silence. The soldiers stood in their stations, heads bowed, remembering those they couldn't save. Humanity didn't celebrate death. They respected it. But beyond Earth, in the cold stars, things began to shift. In the Dralcath Dominion, the same species whose pirates had started this, chaos brewed. Their leaders watched the human response with unease. They had expected fear, maybe negotiation, but what they got instead was the complete destruction of their fleet, followed by a convoy of human aid ships landing on their wounded colonies. No species had ever done that before. One Dralcath elder whispered to another, "They destroy our ships, then heal our children. What kind of monsters do this?" The other replied quietly, "Not monsters. Something else, something we don't understand." And that was the truth. The galaxy didn't understand humans, not fully. They tried to measure them by their logic, their technologies, their alliances, but they never measured their heart. That was humanity's hidden weapon, their heart that burned brighter than any star. Across the outer rim, rumors started to spread in trade networks. Merchants spoke of a human captain who once crossed a nebula alone to save a stranded alien child. Miners spoke of human engineers who risked their lives to stabilize collapsing tunnels to rescue strangers. And now soldiers spoke of the moment humanity went cold. When their eyes changed, their breathing slowed, and they became something ancient. It wasn't rage. It wasn't madness. It was purpose. To many, that was scarier than any weapon. Inside the Galactic Council, debates raged for days. Some argued humanity was too dangerous to remain independent. Others said removing them would mean losing the only species willing to fight for others without reason. The avian delegate stood one day and said softly, "You all fear them because they remind you of what you could be, creatures who love enough to fight for it." The Zethran growled in return. "They are unstable. They act on emotion." The avian tilted his head. "And yet their emotion saved more lives in one day than your entire fleet ever did in a decade." Silence fell again. The truth was heavy. The galaxy had always believed peace came from order, logic, and control. But humanity had shown another kind of peace, one protected by love and fury combined. Meanwhile, Nathan Cole sat alone in his quarters aboard the Terran vessel Unity. The stars outside drifted slowly by, silent and endless. He stared at them, feeling both small and powerful at once. He thought of the soldier from the rescue, the one whose body camera showed the entire event. That man, Corporal Rayner, had survived, but he was quiet now, barely speaking. Nathan visited him once. Rayner had sat on the hospital bed staring out a window. His voice was low. I didn't think. I just moved. They had the kids. I couldn't let them scream again. Nathan had placed a hand on his shoulder. You did what any human would have done. Rayner looked up with tired eyes. No, sir. I did what humans forgot they could do. The galaxy reminded us. That line stayed with Nathan. Back in the council archives, analysts studied human biology, trying to understand the shift they called predator mode. They learned about adrenaline, focus, and the way the human brain could shut off fear when protecting loved ones. But there was something no data could explain. Why humans wept after every battle. Why they prayed for peace even while building weapons. Why they felt guilty for surviving when others didn't. It wasn't logical. It was human. The more the council studied them, the more uneasy they became. Because they realized, if humans ever decided to fight not out of survival but out of revenge, no one could stop them. And yet, humans never did. That contradiction confused every other species. It terrified them, and yet it gave them hope. Weeks later, a quiet transmission reached Earth. It came from a small world near the Drakath border, a planet that had once feared humans. The message was short. It said, "We once feared you. Now we understand you protect not just yourselves, but all of us. We wish to stand with you." Nathan received the message personally. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled faintly. "Maybe," he whispered. "They're finally seeing us for who we are." He sent a reply. "We don't seek fear. We seek peace. But if you ever need us, we'll come." And somewhere across the stars, a new alliance began to form, not from fear of humanity's strength, but from respect for their heart. Because the galaxy had learned a truth that day, humans were not predators by nature. They were protectors by choice. And when their predator mode awakened, it wasn't hatred that drove them. It was love so fierce that it could shake the heavens. In the deep silence of space, the Earth turned slowly, blue and beautiful, and every being who had watched the recordings, every creature who whispered of the day humanity changed, began to feel something strange, something they hadn't felt in centuries. Hope. Because maybe, just maybe, if such dangerous beings could still choose compassion, then peace in the galaxy wasn't just possible, it was worth fighting for. And that was the day the galaxy realized humanity's greatest weapon was never their claws, their ships, or their fury. It was their heart. Weeks turned into months, but the echoes of that day never faded. Everywhere in the galaxy, the word human now carried a new weight. Some said it with admiration. Others said it with fear. And yet the humans went on as they always did, rebuilding, helping, exploring. They sent aid ships to damaged colonies. They opened trade to worlds that once ignored them. Slowly, quietly, they tried to show the galaxy that they were not monsters. But peace is a fragile thing. And fear always finds a way to break it. One evening aboard the Unity, Nathan Cole received a message marked urgent. It came from the council itself, not a request, but a summons. When he entered the great chamber, the room felt colder than usual. The delegates were restless, whispering among themselves. The Arbiter's light pulsed brighter, signaling tension. "Ambassador Cole," the Arbiter began, "we regret to inform you that a Terran outpost on the edge of neutral space has been attacked." Nathan's jaw tightened. "By whom?" The Zethran delegate stood, claws clicking against the floor. "By a rogue species outside council law. They call themselves the Vorn, raiders. They captured a human freighter convoy, civilians." The word civilians hit Nathan like a blade. He exhaled slowly, fighting the heat rising in his chest. "How many?" 73 souls, the Arbiter said. "They are demanding ransom. The Vorn leader claims he does not fear your kind. He says humans are just loud animals pretending to be civilized." The council chamber fell silent. Every delegate knew what that meant. They had all seen what happened the last time someone provoked humanity. The avian representative spoke softly. "What will your people do, Ambassador?" Nathan's voice was calm, too calm. "We'll bring them home. The Zethran narrowed his eyes. You mean to send soldiers again? Are you declaring war? Nathan looked up, eyes steady. No, I'm declaring that no human will ever be left behind. Hours later, aboard the Terran ship Vigilant, the strike team prepared. Every soldier moved in silence, faces focused, movements sharp. The same feeling filled the air, that strange human calm before the storm. The captain, a woman named Laura Kane, approached Nathan. Sir, orders? Simple, Nathan said quietly. No unnecessary kills. Rescue the hostages. Make them understand why humanity is feared, known, and respected. Laura nodded. Understood. As the ship slipped into warp, Nathan stood by the window, watching the stars blur into light. He remembered the last time, the screams, the chaos, the pain. But this time he wasn't afraid. He knew what humans were capable of when everything they loved was threatened. And somewhere deep inside, he felt it again, that quiet, steady pulse of something ancient. When the Vigilant arrived, the Vorn base loomed over a dying moon, its surface covered in dust and ash. The raiders had made it their home, towers of scrap. Metal ships chained together like trophies. The human ship approached silently. Then the boarding pods launched, and small, fast, and deadly. Inside, Laura and her team moved like shadows. Their suits were black and silent, their weapons ready but controlled. When the first guard spotted them and shouted, it was already too late. A flash of light, a burst of sound, and then nothing. The humans didn't speak. They didn't shout. They moved. The same instinct that had stunned the galaxy before came alive again. That focus that erased fear, that sharpened every sense, that made every step feel like destiny. To the Vorn, it felt like death itself had entered their halls. They tried to fight back, screaming in rage and confusion, but the humans didn't respond. They didn't even look angry. Their faces were calm, empty, focused. The faces of protectors doing what must be done. In the main chamber, the Vorn leader held the hostages in a cage made of energy beams. He laughed when he saw the humans enter. You think you can frighten me with your legend? He hissed. You're not predators. You're prey pretending to roar. Laura Kane stepped forward, her rifle steady, voice cold as ice. Then you've never met a mother who's lost her child. Before he could respond, she moved. Fast, precise, unstoppable. 2 seconds later, he was on the ground, his weapon gone, his guards disarmed. Laura turned off the energy cage. The children and civilians inside gasped as the field vanished. It's over, she said gently, helping a crying girl stand. You're safe now. Outside, the battle was short and decisive. The Vigilance cannons disabled the raider ships, not destroyed them. When the dust settled, hundreds of Vorn were left alive, disarmed, staring at the humans who had just defeated them without slaughter. Nathan arrived at the scene after the rescue. He walked among the freed civilians, some injured, some trembling, all alive. He knelt beside a boy who clung to a stuffed animal. You did good, kid, Nathan said softly. You're going home. The boy looked up with wide eyes. Are you one of the soldiers? Nathan smiled faintly. No, just someone who promised your parents I'd bring you back. The boy nodded slowly, tears glistening. Thank you. Nathan placed a hand on his shoulder. No need to thank me, just live. That's how we win. Later, when the council received the report, they were stunned again. The humans had rescued every hostage. Not a single civilian lost. And most shocking of all, they had spared the raiders. The Vorn prisoners were turned over to council authorities alive. The Zethran delegate slammed his claws in disbelief. They could have wiped them out. Why show mercy to those who mocked them? Nathan stood tall before them, his face calm. Because we fight to protect life, not to destroy it. If we kill everything we fear, then we become what we hate. The Arbiter's light pulsed gently. You mean to say your predator mode can also show restraint? Nathan nodded. It's not rage. It's control. It's focus. It's love turned into action. The avian representative leaned forward, feathers trembling. And what will you do if the galaxy keeps testing you? Nathan looked at her quietly. We'll keep choosing to protect. Every time. That night, as the Vigilant returned home, the rescued civilians slept in peace for the first time in weeks. Nathan stood by the window again, looking out at the endless stars. He thought about how far his people had come, from fragile dreamers lost in space to the guardians of peace among the stars. And yet he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven they could fight like demons. Now they had to prove they could lead with compassion. As the stars drifted by, Nathan whispered to himself, "They fear our strength, but one day they'll trust our heart." And somewhere, deep in the quiet of space, a faint whisper seemed to answer. Not in words, but in feeling, a whisper that said, "We see you now, humanity." And for the first time in history, the galaxy didn't just fear them. It began to believe in them. Months passed. The galaxy had changed. The story of humanity's rescue, mercy, and power had spread to every corner of the stars. The word predator mode was no longer spoken with only fear. It had become something else, a warning, yes, but also a promise that if darkness came, humanity would stand between it and the innocent. But peace, as always, never lasts forever. One cold dawn on Earth, alarms echoed through the Terran fleet. A massive energy surge had been detected near the outer colonies, something ancient, vast, and unknown. The signal didn't belong to any known race. It pulsed through space like the heartbeat of a god. Within hours, the Council was in chaos again. Reports came in from every sector. Entire systems losing contact, stars flickering, communications dying. The fear that spread across the chamber that day was deeper than before, primal, heavy. When Nathan Cole entered the room, he saw it on their faces. Even the proud Zethran delegate looked pale. "What is it?" Nathan asked quietly. The Arbiter's light dimmed. "We don't know. But whatever it is, it's moving toward inhabited worlds." The avian representative trembled. "Entire fleets have vanished, Ambassador. Nothing survives its path." Nathan's voice hardened. "Then we'll stop it." The Zethran barked in disbelief. You can't fight what you don't understand." Nathan turned his gaze toward him, calm but unshakable. "That's what they said the first time humanity faced extinction. And we're still here." Within days, the Terran Alliance mobilized. Every ship, every pilot, every engineer knew this fight was not just for Earth. It was for all life. When the fleet arrived near the dying system of Arendor, they saw it, an enormous living construct and a swarm of machines, ancient and endless, devouring light itself. The Council observers watched from a safe distance, horrified. Nathan stood aboard the Unity, watching the dark horizon. "So this is what fear looks like," he whispered. Laura Kane, standing beside him, checked her weapon systems. "Then let's show it what hope looks like." The battle began like thunder. Human ships dove into the storm, their engines blazing white against the black. Plasma bursts filled the void, explosions lighting up the dead sky. But the swarm was endless, its movement almost alive, a sea of metal and shadow. Ships vanished. Signals cut off. And still, humanity pressed forward. In the council chamber, hundreds of light years away, the delegates watched the live feed in silence. For the first time, they saw humans fighting not for themselves, but for everyone. They saw a Terran medic ship shield a damaged alien cruiser, sacrificing itself to keep the others alive. They saw human pilots eject their escape pods not to flee, but to draw fire away from civilians. They saw a species that refused to surrender no matter how impossible the odds. The Arbiter whispered, "They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to protect." And then it happened. A massive surge of energy struck the Unity, throwing everyone off their feet. Alarms screamed. Systems died. The swarm turned toward the Terran flagship, closing in like a living storm. Nathan climbed to his feet, blood on his forehead. "Status." "Shield's gone," Laura shouted. "Weapons failing." "We can't hold." Nathan looked out the viewport. The enemy shimmered like a sea of metal teeth. He could see his reflection, calm eyes, steady breath. That feeling came again. That cold, ancient focus. But this time it wasn't just him. Every human ship, every soldier, every engineer across the fleet felt it too. That same pulse in their chest. Predator mode. But this time it was not born from anger. It was born from unity. Every heart synchronized. Every mind aligned. The humans became one will, one purpose. To protect life. The comms lit up with voices. For Earth. For the children of the stars. For every life that fears the dark. And then, the humans charged. They moved like a single creature, striking in perfect coordination. Their ships weaved through impossible gaps, shielding each other, tearing through the swarm's core. Every explosion lit the void like sunrise after endless night. The council chamber was silent. Every species watching could feel it. That same ancient pulse that once drove humans to survive the wilds of Earth. They were witnessing evolution, not of power, but of purpose. Then came the final act. The swarm's core began to destabilize, glowing brighter and brighter, a sun about to explode. If it went off, the entire system would die. Nathan looked at the readings. There was no time, no escape. He opened the comms. "This is Ambassador Cole. All ships fall back. I'll finish this." Laura turned to him in shock. "Sir, you'll die." He smiled softly. Someone has to hold the door. Before she could argue, he stepped onto the control bridge, activating manual override. The Unity's engines roared, pushing forward straight into the light. "Humanity is not prey," he said quietly to himself. "We are protectors." The last transmission the council received was Nathan's voice, calm, steady. "Tell them. We did this for everyone." And then the screen went white. Silence. When the light faded, the swarm was gone. The explosion had stopped short of the nearby planets. The system survived. But the Unity was gone too. The humans mourned. The council mourned. The galaxy mourned. For days, every communication channel carried the same message. Ambassador Nathan Cole, protector of all life. The Arbiter ordered a day of silence across all worlds. Even the Zethran bowed his head, and when the quiet ended, something beautiful began. A monument was built, not just on Earth, but on every council world. It showed a single human figure standing between the stars and a shadow, arms outstretched as if holding back the dark itself. The inscription read, "We are human. We love fiercely. We fight because we must."